So once we have saved our, well, now it's probably time to save our document because we've done a lot and you don't want to lose anything. So go ahead and do File, Save As. And I want you to put it in a folder that you just created. Okay? And it's going to be called your last name, first name, initial, underscore, assign 7A. Now you don't have to put underscore M1, M2, W, whatever, because you already have the folder. You'll be submitting the folder, right? So this is the name you can give it. Okay, just assign. It is in the instructions as well. So name it. I'm doing 2 because this is the second lab. Please do not, when you're watching this, do not put the 2 there. Next, I want you to go back to Bridge. Bridge. And I want you to open that mountain. Do not drag it. We don't want a smart object. You want to double click on it from Bridge. If you don't have Bridge, you need to open it as a separate document in Photoshop. So it has to be separate because we don't want a smart object. If we do a smart object on this, it won't work what we want to do. Okay. So drag the tab out. Drag it out. Now go ahead in your tools, select the move tool, which is the top right tool, and then just move it to your legs. And it's going to tell you this, it may not, and just move it here. What do you think? Do we have too much empty space around? I did a very good job with my measurement. So what we need to do, we need to crop it. So crop it around the mountain. Use the crop tool and crop it. Double click and it's cropped. Okay. At this point you should have background, mountain, layer 1, and legs. Next, please rename your layer 1 and call it mountain. Now what we want to do, we want to do a selection where you can see the background for the mountain, but the way we're going to do it, we're going to do it through our channels. So go back to, click on your channels to activate them. And at the bottom of your channels, click New. Should be filled with black. Name this channel, double click on the name, call it Gradient. Alpha channels, they work with, black and white, and gray is the opacity. So really they're opacity channel right now, what we're creating. Okay. Now in your tools, make sure you have white and black. White the foreground, black the background. Okay. Next, I want you to click where you have the paint bucket and select Gradient tool. So click in there and select the gradient. Okay. And top gradient, make sure it goes from white to black. Just make it should be the default. Now we want to have white on top, black on the bottom. So we can go from here to here. That's good enough. You want to make sure it is white on top and black in the bottom. So the white is going to be transparent. The more black you have, it's going to be opaque. So I would probably work with this a few times until I like it. That's too much. That's not good. So the first one was the best one. Yeah, that's probably the best. Okay. You make sure you have gray showing well and you have the black, right? Now with that done, we can click on our RGB channel to deselect everything else. So click back on your RGB channel. Then when you click that, click layers. Now make sure you click on the channel. Make sure you uncheck everything else. Okay. Don't click the eye. Go to your layers, go to your mountain. Are you on the mountain? Okay. We are going to load this as a selection. Remember where to go? Select. Load selection. Do not click OK. Do not click anything. I want you to stay at that load selection. Do you notice that it says mountain transparency? What is our channel called? No, what is our channel called? Gradient. That means this is not the channel we need to use. We need to click on it and choose the gradient. Okay. This is just telling you the document so you know you're in the right place. And do OK. You should get something like this. Kind of halfway. That's what you get. All right, guess what? The magic key, delete. And it should go. So now you're showing, see what is now. So this became completely transparent. Then you have some opacity here, right? Opaque completely in the bottom, right? Okay, now go ahead and deselect it, Command D. Deselect. Next thing, select the legs. Select those legs. Select your move tool on the top tools. And move those legs on right close to the top, right? Almost touching the top left side. Right there. Okay. Right now, those legs do not look good. They look like they're chopped off and they're floating. I mean, this is what you call bad design. So we need to blend those with the background. And we're going to do a few ways of non-destructive way of working. And we will do layer mask on that, okay? So go ahead on your legs, layer, click on the layer mask. Add layer mask. Okay. Now go ahead and switch that to black as the foreground. Select your brush. Make sure the softness, I mean you have a soft, so 0% hardness, okay? Make it very soft. My brush is way too small, so I'm going to increase that. And go ahead and play around with changing it up, like blending it. Also, another thing I want you to do, look at the opacity options. So make it from the more cutoff to opacity. So just work with the opacity options, okay? And see if you can blend that in. Now do something like this. Not gonna be perfect yet, but something that it blends with your with the clouds behind it. So because this is not still, like, to me, not as blended, I can blend it more in that layer mask with my gradient. Okay, but watch something. I want you to see. Some of you may go this way. This doesn't look right, right? Because you want to start kind of where you blended it out and go up. It's more blended. You see something like that. That way it's more transition. So don't go too much. I mean, you don't want to go like this where almost everything is so transparent. You just want to blend the beginning here just a little bit more. So use the gradient tool to do that, okay? And you're going from the bottom to the top. So now we have one more object we need to bring in, and that's the plant, and we're gonna do it as a smart object. Remember how to bring in a smart object? So I'm gonna go to bridge. You can do it as well from our file. You just drag it. It's gonna be the plant PSD file. You drag it in. Right where mine, place it right in the middle. This is a good place to be. And then just double click on it. So it's right there. Okay. Right there is good. And we will do a few things to this one non-destructively. One thing we're going to do is we are going to make this a different color. And we're going to use adjustment layers. So go ahead, select your adjustment layers from the layers in the bottom and choose hue and saturation. Okay. From the hue, change it up to different shade. Notice if I'm doing this, what happens? There's a reason why. You do not want every layer to be affected, right? You just want to click on the button. You've noticed that when I change my hue, it affects everything. Because by default, it will affect every layer that's on it. What you have to do, we only want the plant to change. You would have to click that button right here. It says adjust affect only layers below. Will only affect the layer below. So click on it. That way it doesn't affect everything. Everybody got it? Okay, click on that button. Otherwise, now go ahead and change the hue. And I also want you to work with saturation. Leave the lightness alone. So notice I go, okay. Now if you notice in your layers, it created a separate layer for you. Okay. That is a separate layer. And that is part of that. Only one more thing left on this one. It's what we want to do. We want to, actually that's two things. In your instructions, it also tells you to work with the layer styles. But we're not going to do it right away. That would be extra thing. We need to show this, hide this behind the two, like the crack there is in the mountain. So we want to hide it behind it. So click on your plant layer again and select the layer mask. Okay. Layer mask, and with the layer mask selected, select your paintbrush. Sure the foreground is black. And paint away. Now opacity, I would probably increase it to 100%. Just paint it away so it looks like it's between two of them. If you need to reposition your image, you can. To reposition your image, you would need to click right on the thumbnail of that image. So show it as it is behind. The mountain. If you go over, you can always change it up. If you go over like this, you can switch to white and then clean it up. Alright, now you can either now choose to do the layer style. Those watching, we will do it in the lab, but those watching, if you're watching it in my Monday 1 and Wednesday, you are done. We can save that and we are done with recording. For this Monday, I will not record this, I will just show him. So you are done with part 1. Next is part 2. All the files for part 2 are in that same folder I told you to copy, so you should be okay to do it.